Betrayed by ex, pregnant wife becomes the sole love of a powerful millionaire, leaving him in regret. In a world where betrayal cuts deep and love emerges from the most unexpected places, follow the heart-wrenching journey of Isabella Monroe, a woman who thought she had it all, only to watch her dreams crumble at the hands of her deceitful ex-boyfriend, David Lancaster. Pregnant and alone, Isabella's future looked grim until a chance encounter with one of the most powerful millionaires in the city, Alexander Beaumont, changed her fate forever. Step into a tale of heartbreak and hope, sizzling passion and scandalous secrets, where powerful loyalties are tested and shocking twists lie around every corner. This is a story you won't want to miss. Isabella Monroe never imagined she would find herself sobbing on a cold marble floor, barely able to lift her head. The young interior designer had built a beautiful life, or so she believed, alongside her long-time boyfriend, David Lancaster. They lived in a quaint two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Boston, a place filled with art, books, and cherished memories of late-night cuddles and whispered secrets. But in a single moment, all that tranquility came crashing down. When she discovered David's explicit text messages to another woman, Isabella felt as though her heart had been ripped from her chest. David, ever the smooth talker, had always known how to make Isabella feel safe and adored. But as she read those texts, her faith in him disintegrated like old paper. Who was this Stephanie, proclaiming her love and planning romantic rendezvous at chic hotels? Worse, David had apparently been indulging in her affections for months, all the while returning home to Isabella as though nothing was amiss. The sense of betrayal coursed through Isabella's veins, boiling her blood and chilling her soul. Tears blurred her vision, and she clung to a family photo on the coffee table, Isabella and her late mother, Linda Monroe, who had passed away a year ago. Linda was the one person who would have known exactly what to say. Without her mother's guiding presence, Isabella felt more alone than ever. She sank deeper into despair, faint sobs escaping her throat. At that moment, David stepped into the apartment. "What's with all the crying?" he asked, sounding more inconvenienced than concerned. Isabella glared at him, brandishing her phone. "I read your messages, David. Don't even try to deny it." Her voice shook with rage and heartbreak. David's face paled. For a fleeting second, he looked ashamed, but then his mouth curled into a half-smirk, half-grimace. "Isabella, it's not what you think, not what I think," she spat, her tears glistening against her flushed cheeks. "You said you loved someone else, and you've been lying to me. You promised me forever, David." He tried to grab her hand, but she yanked it away. "I never asked you to wait around," he snapped, frustration evident. "Things got complicated. We grew apart. Stephanie just happened." The callousness behind his words was a brutal knife to Isabella's heart. Every memory, their first date at Tanglewood, their late-night ice cream runs, the stolen kisses in autumn leaves, felt like a cruel joke. The love she once believed in was gone, replaced by the harsh reality of a man who didn't care that she was breaking. "I'm leaving," she managed, summoning the last fragments of her dignity. "And don't you dare follow me." Grabbing her purse, Isabella fled the apartment, ignoring David's half-hearted pleas. Beneath the streetlights of Boston, her tears streamed, blending with the drizzle that coated the sidewalks. She had no idea where she would go. A single question hammered in her mind: what now? When morning arrived, Isabella found herself at her best friend Marina Campbell's doorstep. The moment Marina opened the door, her warm brown eyes were flooded with concern. Without a word, she pulled Isabella into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry," Marina whispered, guiding Isabella into the living room. "I never liked David, but I never thought he'd do this." Isabella sank into the plush couch, hugging a throw pillow as though it could shield her from the world. "I don't know what to do," she confided. "I poured my entire life into that relationship. I can't believe it's over, just like that." Marina made a pot of chamomile tea, their tradition, whenever life fell apart. The fragrant steam did little to soothe Isabella's nerves, but the warmth reminded her she wasn't alone. Marina's apartment was cozy, overflowing with trinkets from her travels. Photographs from Bali, postcards from Venice, pressed flowers from London. Each memory told a story of strength and independence, qualities that Isabella desperately needed right now. They sat side by side, sipping tea in silence. Finally, Marina cleared her throat. "Look, I know this is hard, but you deserve better. You're an incredible woman, Bella. You have talent, you have heart. Don't let David's betrayal overshadow everything you've worked for." Isabella's eyes brimmed with fresh tears. "But I gave him everything, Marina, and now I have nothing." Marina squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "You have me, and you have a future that is wide open. Maybe this is a sign that there's someone else, someone who will respect and treasure you." The thought felt too abstract, too distant. Right now, all Isabella could think about was her broken heart. She pressed a hand against her abdomen, where a slight cramp caught her attention. She had been feeling off for a few days, chalking it up to stress. Now, with her world in pieces, a sense of dread began to form. Her period was late, very late. Inhaling sharply, Isabella locked eyes with Marina. I might be pregnant." The words trembled on her lips like a fragile confession. Marina's eyes widened. "Have you taken a test?" Shaking her head, Isabella stared at her feet. The reality of it was too overwhelming. Could life be this cruel, or was this some unexpected blessing? Marina jumped to her feet, grabbed her car keys, and rushed Isabella off to a nearby pharmacy. Within an hour, Isabella found herself sitting in Marina's bathroom, staring at a pregnancy test. 2 lines, positive. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of absolute terror. David's betrayal had already shattered her. How was she going to handle a pregnancy on top of everything else? And how would David react? Marina, hovering nearby, spotted the result and gently wrapped her arms around Isabella. "Whatever happens, I'm here for you. We'll figure it out." But Isabella's mind raced with questions. She had always wanted children, just not like this. Not with a man who had betrayed her, leaving her uncertain and alone. A swirl of conflicting emotions churned in her heart. Heartbreak, confusion, yet an odd flicker of protectiveness for the life forming inside her. Her life had taken a drastic turn. Now she would need every ounce of strength she had to face what lay ahead. Days passed in a blur of heartbreak and raw nerves. Isabella tried to call David to break the news. But every time she dialed his number, her stomach churned, and the phone slipped from her trembling hands. Finally, she mustered the courage to send him a text. "We need to talk. I have something important to tell you." He responded hours later with a simple, "I'll be busy this week, maybe next week." Fury ignited in Isabella's chest. She typed back, "It can't wait." He never replied. Her phone buzzed later that evening. Instead of David, it was a friend from her interior design firm, Anna McNeil. Anna was panicked. "Isabella, we have a potential client, a huge deal. Mr. Alexander Beaumont is building a new boutique hotel and needs a design team. He's a big name in real estate. He specifically asked for our firm after seeing some of your portfolio online." Breathing shakily, Isabella tried to wrap her head around the unexpected news. She had heard of Alexander Beaumont, a millionaire known for his philanthropic activities, savvy business sense, and rumored rebellious streak. He was the sole heir to the Beaumont real estate empire. His developments dotted major cities across the country. "That's great, but Anna, I'm a mess right now." Anna's voice softened. "I know what you're going through, Bella, but this project could put us on the map." and you need something to ground you. This might be the perfect distraction. Marina encouraged her to accept the offer as well. You can't let David's betrayal steal your career. You're talented. You deserve this. So, despite her personal turmoil, Isabella prepared for the meeting at the five-star Beaumont Hotel in downtown Boston. Her nerves were already frayed. Adding pregnancy hormones to the mix made her hands tremble more than usual. She arrived early, wearing a fitted navy blazer that concealed the barely noticeable bump. She took the elevator to the 42nd floor, heart pounding with each floor passed. When the doors opened, a pristine reception area greeted her. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the cityscape, and the entire room exuded quiet opulence. She approached the reception desk, introducing herself to the sharply dressed assistant. Within minutes, she was escorted to a spacious corner office. Alexander Beaumont stood by a large picture window, tall and poised, with an air of command that radiated even from a distance. When he turned around, Isabella was struck by the depth of his gaze, steel-grey eyes that seemed to read her soul in an instant. He gave a polite nod and gestured for her to sit. He was younger than she expected, perhaps in his early 30s, with a strong jawline, short dark hair, and the kind of presence that made any room bow to him. "Thank you for coming, Miss Monroe," he said, extending his hand. As she took it, Isabella felt a strange spark. She dismissed it, blaming her frazzled nerves. "It's a pleasure, Mr. Beaumont," she replied, forcing a calm she didn't entirely feel. They went over the plans for the new hotel project, an ambitious and luxurious boutique establishment. Alexander was meticulous, detailing the atmosphere he wanted, understated elegance, a blend of modern design with timeless comfort. Isabella listened intently, occasionally fighting to keep her composure as a wave of nausea or exhaustion hit. This design opportunity would not only lift her career, but also help distract her from the storm in her personal life if she could keep herself together. When he finished, Isabella offered suggestions, referencing her portfolio. Alexander's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "Your ideas are innovative. I can see why your firm speaks highly of you." A faint smile touched his lips. "I think you could transform my vision into a reality." Isabella blushed, a welcome shift from the usual tears. "I'd be honored to take on the project." Alexander leaned back in his plush leather chair. "Excellent. I'll have my assistant send over the formal contracts. I look forward to working with you." Her heart fluttered. Some corner of her mind suspected that this project would alter her life in unexpected ways. Little did she know how deeply she and Alexander Beaumont would become entwined. For now, she pushed aside thoughts of David, her precarious future, and the child she carried. She resolved to give this project her all. If nothing else, she could prove to herself and the world that betrayal wouldn't break her. Work on Alexander's project began swiftly. Meetings, site visits, sample reviews, and late-night brainstorming sessions became the new normal for Isabella. She immersed herself fully, which helped stall the heartbreak. Yet, outside of those bustling hours, reality clung to her like a persistent shadow. She was pregnant. She felt it every morning when the pangs of nausea forced her out of bed, and each evening when fatigue settled in, more potent than ever before. Marina urged her to follow up with David, or at least confide in someone else, but Isabella resisted. She felt uncertain about what kind of father David would be, or if he even deserved a chance to be one. He had cut off communication, ignoring her texts and calls. The betrayal still stung, overshadowing any sense of responsibility she once believed he might feel. Nonetheless, the pregnancy loomed like a quiet storm. Her doctor confirmed she was about 7 weeks along. She was given vitamins and instructions to rest when possible. But rest was a luxury she could scarcely afford. Isabella had a massive hotel design project to spearhead and heartbreak to mend. Nights found her tossing and turning on Marina's couch, worry gripping her chest like a vice. How would she raise a child alone? Would her career survive the demands of single motherhood? Marina tried to be a voice of optimism. "You're strong, Bella. You'll do fine, and you'll never be alone." Isabella forced a smile, nodding, but deep down, an ache pulsed. She yearned for a stable partner who would stand by her side through every ultrasound, every craving, and every kick. David had stolen that chance from her. Now she carried a child whose father was a stranger, caught up in his own selfish desires. One evening, as Isabella was heading home from yet another meeting at the Beaumont offices, she ran into Alexander in the hallway. He looked uncharacteristically exhausted, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled, yet he still managed a polite smile. "You're working late," he remarked, checking the time on a sleek watch. "I admire your dedication. I just want to make sure the designs are perfect," Isabella replied. "This project could define my career." Alexander nodded, a fleeting warmth crossing his features. When passion aligns with talent, success is inevitable. Though Isabella was flattered, she tried to keep the conversation strictly professional. That was, until her stomach lurched suddenly. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, trying to quell the nausea. "Are you okay?" Alexander asked, alarmed by the paleness of her face. She nodded quickly, attempting a reassuring smile. "Probably just something I ate." But Alexander saw right through her. "You look unwell. Let me at least take you to the lounge for a glass of water." Reluctantly, she followed him to a private executive lounge. The space was elegant and quiet, with plush chairs and a panoramic view of the city skyline. He offered her a bottle of chilled water, and she sipped it gratefully. Despite her efforts to hide her condition, Isabella realized how vulnerable she must appear. Dark circles rimmed her eyes. Her complexion was pallid. Alexander watched her with a gentle concern that took her by surprise. "I know we don't know each other well, but if there's anything you need, I'm here. I value the people I work with. You're part of my team now." An unexpected lump formed in Isabella's throat. She blinked back tears. No one, not even David in the last month, had shown her such simple kindness. She tried to muster a polite, reserved response, but her voice quivered. "Thank you, Mr. Beaumont. I appreciate it." He half smiled. "Call me Alexander, and get some rest." Though the exchange was brief, it left Isabella's heart thudding. She was embarrassed by her fragile condition, but also touched by Alexander's concern. For once, she didn't feel like she was fighting alone. Little did she know, that night was the first subtle shift in a chain of events that would soon catch her ex in a whirlwind of regret and see her standing beside a man more powerful and caring than she ever thought possible. Weeks turned to months, and Isabella's workload became both a blessing and a burden. As her body adjusted to pregnancy, she learned to manage her morning sickness, carefully planning her schedule around the waves of queasiness. At night, she and Marina perused baby books, whispering about names and gentle lullabies. The concept of motherhood still felt surreal, but the fluttery movements in her abdomen reminded her that she was not alone. Meanwhile, the project with Alexander progressed smoothly. Isabella spent long hours collaborating with contractors and vendors, selecting fabrics, testing color palettes, and producing 3D mock-ups of the new boutique hotel. The synergy between them was palpable. Alexander's insights were sharp, and Isabella's creative vision was boundless. Though they maintained a professional air, there was an undercurrent of mutual respect and perhaps something more that neither acknowledged. One afternoon, after a rigorous design meeting, Alexander suggested lunch at a nearby restaurant to discuss final touches. The invitation made Isabella's heart flutter. She told herself it was just business, but part of her couldn't ignore the tingle of anticipation. They chose a discreet corner booth in a high-end Italian restaurant. Isabella tried to focus on her pastor, but it was difficult with Alexander sitting across from her, his intense eyes fixed on her every word. They spoke about the project first, but soon the conversation drifted. Alexander set his fork down. "You mentioned once that you grew up in Boston. Do you still have family here?" Isabella hesitated. Memories of her mother flickered, stirring fresh pain. "My mother passed away a year ago," she said quietly. "She was really my only close family. My father left us when I was young. I guess I'm used to being on my own." Sympathy clouded Alexander's gaze. "I'm sorry. That must have been difficult." "It was," Isabella admitted, her eyes dropping. "And lately, things have been complicated." She didn't elaborate, and Alexander didn't press. Instead, he offered a comforting nod. "If there's anything I can do," Isabella quickly changed the subject, uncertain if she was ready to reveal her pregnancy or the heartbreak David had caused. They finished lunch, and Alexander insisted on covering the bill despite Isabella's protests. The gesture, though chivalrous, left her flustered. She wasn't used to such gallantry anymore. As they stepped outside, the early autumn sunshine warmed them. A breeze rustled the fallen leaves, swirling them at their feet. Alexander's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, a slight crease forming on his brow. "I have a board meeting in 15 minutes. I'll have to rush back." He paused, then turned to her. "Would you like a ride back to the office?" Normally, Isabella would have politely declined, but her feet ached and a mild fatigue gnawed at her. "I'd appreciate that." They slipped into the back of a sleek black SUV. The ride was relatively short, and they spoke sporadically about design details. Yet the silent tension between them felt oddly intimate. When they arrived, Alexander lingered, as though wanting to say more. In the end, he only offered a warm smile before disappearing into the elevator. Isabella stood there, momentarily rooted in place. She pressed her hand against her stomach, feeling the reassuring thump of her baby's presence. A swirl of emotions welled within her, gratitude for the kindness Alexander had shown, and an unbidden spark of attraction she wasn't sure how to handle. She bit her lip, forcing herself to focus on the tasks ahead, but something whispered in the back of her mind, "This man is going to change your life in ways you can't imagine." As Isabella's pregnancy approached the end of her first trimester, her body began to show subtle changes. Her face glowed with a gentle radiance, the exhaustion ebbed, replaced by a cautious optimism. But each time she tried to contact David, he was unreachable. She left voicemails that went unanswered, text messages read but ignored. The heartbreak morphed into anger. Had he truly discarded her so completely? Then, just as she was about to give up, David reappeared unannounced. Late one night, a frantic pounding on Marina's apartment door jolted Isabella awake. Startled, she wrapped herself in a robe and rushed to see who it was. There, disheveled and reeking of alcohol, stood David Lancaster. His eyes were bloodshot, and his posture exuded desperation. Isabella's heart pounded with a conflicting blend of fear and unresolved pain. "What are you doing here?" David shoved his hands through his tousled hair. "I messed up, Bella." His voice cracked. "I heard you've been working with that millionaire Beaumont. Moved on already, haven't you?" Shock flashed across her face. "So that's what this is about?" Not an apology or concern for her well-being, but jealousy over rumors he must have heard through the grapevine. "What I do now is none of your business, David. You made that clear." He took an unsteady step forward, eyes gleaming with anger and regret. "I was stupid. Stephanie was just. I don't know. I was confused." Isabella bristled, confused. "About what? About wanting to cheat on me? Or about ignoring me for weeks after I discovered your betrayal?" Her hand instinctively rose to her slightly rounded belly, her protective stance unmissable. David's gaze followed her hand. Realization flickered across his face. Are you pregnant? A wave of fury swept over Isabella. She had wanted to tell him, but not like this. Not with him stumbling drunk on her doorstep, hurling baseless accusations about another man. Yes, she finally managed, voice quavering with a mix of anger and vulnerability. I tried to tell you, David, but you never bothered to listen. His jaw dropped, and he took another step, nearly stumbling. Why didn't you try harder? He yelled, a slur in his words. You know I've been dealing with a lot. Isabella's fingers clenched. I'm done trying, David. I can't trust you. And now you show up, drunk, accusing me of moving on too quickly. He reached for her, but Marina appeared behind Isabella, crossing her arms defensively. Get lost, David, she snapped, or I'm calling the police. David glowered but stepped back, stumbling on the dimly lit landing. His voice broke into a pleading whine. Bella, please. I want to fix this. But Isabella's eyes were hardened. The faint memory of how gently Alexander had offered her water, or how encouraging he was about her design ideas, contrasted sharply with the image of David in front of her. She swallowed back tears. It's too late. Marina slammed the door in his face. They heard him curse under his breath and shuffle away. Leaning against the door, Isabella felt a surge of adrenaline and heartbreak. She slid down to the floor, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. Marina knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You did the right thing, Marina said softly. He can't just decide he wants you back now, not after everything. Isabella sniffled, nodding. But a faint voice in her head whispered, he's the father of your child. Would she ever truly be free of David? Or was she now bound to him by a life that grew within her? In the days that followed David's drunken visit, Isabella felt constantly on edge. She changed her number and alerted Marina's apartment security not to let David in. Part of her mourned the finality of it all, the illusions of love and forever she once held so dear. Another part felt a surprising surge of relief, as though an invisible weight had lifted from her shoulders. Work on Alexander's boutique hotel continued, with Isabella receiving steady praise for her innovative ideas. She often found herself in Alexander's company, reviewing samples, discussing layouts, and making site visits. Although he remained strictly professional, the warmth in his eyes whenever they spoke hinted at a deeper curiosity. One afternoon, they met at the construction site. Concrete walls and scaffolding surrounded them, echoing with the clang of machinery. Isabella, wearing a hard hat and protective vest, walked Alexander through the layout of the future lobby. As she gestured to the blueprint, a wave of dizziness hit her. She swayed, blinking rapidly. Alexander's arm shot out, steadying her. Concern etched his face. You've been looking pale all morning. Are you sure you're okay? Isabella mustered a tight smile. I'm fine, just tired. He guided her away from the noise, into a makeshift office on the site. There, he offered her a seat and a bottle of water. I worry about you, he said quietly, setting aside his typical business-like demeanor. You push yourself so hard. Her eyes flickered with gratitude, but the moment felt too intimate. Her pulse quickened, and she wrestled with the secret she'd been keeping. Could she trust him? Swallowing hard, she decided to reveal a fraction of the truth. I have personal reasons for not wanting to slow down. Let's just say, I'm going through a big life change. Alexander's gaze didn't waver. Is this something I can help with? That question, so genuine and caring, unraveled a knot in Isabella's chest. She didn't plan the words that slipped out next. I'm pregnant. A heavy silence flooded the small office. She expected shock or pity. Instead, Alexander's eyes softened, and he nodded as though pieces of a puzzle fell into place. Does the father know? Isabella's voice trembled. He knows. We parted ways. It's complicated. Alexander pressed his lips together, a flicker of empathy crossing his features. I'm sorry you're going through this alone. No one should have to. Emotion choked Isabella's throat. She had braced for judgment, for a shift in how he treated her. Instead, she found acceptance. "Thank you," she whispered, tears threatening to spill. "I promise this won't affect my work. I'll see this project to the end." He reached out, gently resting a hand atop hers. "I know you will, but your well-being comes first. Don't ever think you have to do this alone." His kindness unlocked something in Isabella's heart. She felt seen, safe, and supported in a way David never managed. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't hide them. Alexander handed her a tissue, his silent presence more comforting than any words could be. That moment marked a turning point. A fragile trust began to blossom between them, paving the way for deeper emotions to follow. Isabella wasn't sure what shape those emotions would take, but she felt a spark of hope in a time dominated by fear. Perhaps, even amid heartbreak, she could still find a path to happiness, one that led her away from regret and into the arms of someone who truly cared. As the hotel project gained momentum, Isabella found her professional star rising. The Beaumont Group sang her praises in meetings and industry events, crediting her for the design's visionary flair. Media outlets in Boston began speculating about the mystery designer behind the upcoming Beaumont Boutique Hotel, fueling curiosity and respect among her peers. Yet, with fame came gossip. Whispers circulated that Isabella wasn't just a talented designer, but also Alexander Beaumont's latest conquest. People pointed to their frequent meetings, ignoring the necessity of collaboration for the project. Some tabloids went so far as to capture blurry photographs of them leaving restaurants or stepping out of the construction site together, spinning tales of romance. Isabella heard the murmurs whenever she walked through the firm's corridors. Colleagues who once greeted her warmly now offered forced smiles. She tried to dismiss their jealousy, but the rumors stung. The idea that her hard work was overshadowed by speculation about a relationship with her powerful client was frustrating. More than that, it dredged up her complicated feelings. A part of her did harbor growing admiration for Alexander, but was it mutual, or was she just a subject of idle speculation? One evening, after an especially grueling day of site inspections, Isabella packed up her desk. Her back ached, her feet throbbed, and her newly emerging baby bump felt heavy. She was about to leave when her phone buzzed. It was Alexander. "Are you free for a quick dinner? There's something I'd like to discuss about the lounge design." She stared at the screen, her heart fluttering. Was this another professional meeting? Or something else? Either way, her curiosity won. "Sure," she typed back. "Where should I meet you?" He replied with the name of a charming French bistro downtown. Isabella's nerves tingled as she hailed a taxi, half expecting a paparazzi to pop out from behind a lamppost. She arrived at the softly lit restaurant, where a hostess guided her to a private alcove. Alexander stood when she approached, ever the gentleman, pulling out her chair. "Thank you for meeting me so late," he said, offering a warm smile. "I know you must be tired." Isabella laughed lightly, a bit self-conscious. All part of the job, right? They chatted about the lounge design, scribbling ideas on a notepad and mulling over color palettes. But as the meal progressed, Alexander grew more contemplative. Finally, he set down his fork and fixed her with a serious gaze. "I'm aware of the rumors circulating," he said softly. "Some of my acquaintances have hinted at a personal relationship between us." Heat flooded Isabella's cheeks. She looked down at her plate. "I've heard the gossip too. It's uncomfortable." "I never wanted you to feel pressured or misjudged," he continued. "You've done brilliant work, and it pains me to think that your talent is overshadowed by baseless assumptions." Isabella exhaled, relief mingling with the swirl of emotions inside her. She met his eyes, searching for sincerity. "Thank you for acknowledging that." A moment of silence stretched between them. Alexander's gaze lingered, a flicker of something unspoken passing through those steel-grey eyes. I also want you to know that while my respect for you is purely professional, he hesitated, carefully choosing his words, I do care about you on a personal level. I admire your strength, your dedication. Isabella's heart pounded, her ears ringing. She wasn't naive. She sensed a mutual attraction, subtle yet potent, but her life was complicated. She was pregnant with another man's child. Could she risk letting her guard down? Reading her hesitation, Alexander cleared his throat. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. Let's remain focused on the project and your well-being. Anything else can be navigated in due time. I just wanted to be transparent, so you won't worry about my intentions. She smiled, a warm flush in her chest. Thank you for saying that. They finished dinner, the atmosphere lighter now that the unspoken tension had been addressed. When Isabella left the restaurant, she couldn't help but marvel at the turn her life had taken. A few months ago, she was trapped in a toxic relationship with David. Now, she was forging an independent career and possibly forging a deeper connection with a man who seemed genuinely good. Still, a nagging voice inside her whispered caution. Love was a treacherous path, and David's re-emergence had proven that she couldn't simply bury the past. The future loomed with promise, but also uncertainty, leaving Isabella torn between hope and fear. The next week was a whirlwind of activity, finalizing budgets, selecting furniture, and overseeing finishing touches. The hotel's grand opening was just 3 months away, and every day felt like a countdown. Despite the stress, Isabella found herself energized, her creative spirit thriving. Her evenings, however, were filled with less cheerful tasks, reviewing prenatal vitamins, visiting the doctor, and brushing up on baby books. She was well into her second trimester now, her bump more noticeable. Marina encouraged her to buy maternity clothes, but Isabella hesitated, not ready to broadcast her condition to the world, especially at the firm. Yet, it was getting harder to hide. One late afternoon, Isabella was leaving the Beaumont office when she heard a familiar voice call her name. Turning, she saw David standing by the lobby entrance, eyes bloodshot. A jolt of alarm ran through her. She thought she'd blocked him from her life. How had he known she would be here? Instinctively, she wrapped her arms around her protruding belly. What are you doing here, David? He shot a glance around, noting the opulent surroundings. So this is where you spend your time these days, cozying up to your rich boss. Anger surged, but Isabella forced herself to remain calm. That's none of your business. Leave before I call security. David stepped closer, voice dropping to a menacing whisper. I'm still the father of that baby, Bella. You can't just cut me out. Her heart hammered. Deep down, she knew David had paternal rights, but the memory of his betrayal fanned her resentment. Funny how you suddenly care now. Where were you for months? His gaze flicked over her bump as though seeing it for the first time. I was confused, okay? But I want to be there for my child. Isabella's lips trembled. A surge of complicated emotions threatened to undo her composure. Being a father is more than words, David. It's about respect, commitment. You ignored me, cheated on me. Why should I trust you with my child? Before he could reply, footsteps echoed behind them. Alexander approached, his tall frame emanating quiet authority. He glanced between Isabella and David, picking up on the tension. Is everything all right here? He asked, voice calm but firm. David narrowed his eyes at Alexander. This doesn't concern you. Alexander's jaw tightened, but his tone remained measured. Isabella is an important member of my team and a friend. If you're causing her distress, it does concern me. Isabella felt her heart flutter with gratitude. She turned to David, summoning her courage. Leave, David. We can talk about custody or visitation later, but not like this. Not when you show up unannounced, making accusations. David snarled, but he noticed the security guard eyeing him from the corner of the lobby. With a final glare at Alexander, he stormed off, muttering curses under his breath. Shaken, Isabella leaned against a nearby marble pillar. Alexander gently touched her shoulder. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Are you all right?" She nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "I'll manage." "I just didn't expect him to show up here." Alexander hesitated, then reached for her hand. "If you need any help, legal advice, protection, please let me know." Isabella swallowed the lump in her throat, touched by his genuine concern. In that moment, she saw a stark contrast between the two men, one who had broken her trust and one who had done nothing but support her. Yet she also recognized the tangled future ahead. David's claim as the baby's father might complicate everything, regardless of how she felt about Alexander. Still, as she left the building with Alexander by her side, she couldn't shake the sensation that she wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Together, they walked toward an uncertain tomorrow, hearts guarded but hopeful that love might conquer the chaos around them. As the hotel launch neared, Alexander grew more protective of Isabella. Whenever she worked late, he'd insist on sending her home in a company car. He'd check in quietly to ensure she was taking breaks and eating properly, small gestures that tugged at her heartstrings. Meanwhile, Isabella's pregnancy became increasingly difficult to conceal. She found creative ways to drape her outfits, but her co-workers began to whisper with more intensity. It wasn't just the baby bump that fueled the gossip now, it was the way Alexander lingered in conversations with Isabella, the gentle warmth in his eyes whenever they locked gazes. Despite the rising talk, Alexander remained professional in public, never crossing a line that would confirm the rumors. Yet in private moments, there was an undeniable closeness. One evening, Isabella found herself working past 9 o'clock, determined to finalize the color scheme for the hotel suites. The office was nearly empty, the city's lights twinkling through the towering windows. Suddenly, the overhead lights clicked off. Panicked, she stood up, only to see a lone figure approach with a small birthday cake aglow with candles. Alexander's deep chuckle echoed in the darkness. "I asked your friend Marina for your birthday. She told me it was today. Happy birthday, Isabella." Tears sprang to her eyes. She had completely lost track of the date, too consumed by work, heartbreak, and pregnancy worries. No one else had remembered, least of all David. She swallowed, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Thank you," she whispered, her cheeks flushing. He set the cake down on a table, illuminating the space with a gentle glow. "Make a wish." She closed her eyes, heart pounding, uncertain of what wish to make. She had so many unspoken desires, a healthy baby, a secure future, the ability to find love again without fear. When she opened her eyes, she blew out the candles. A tiny wisp of smoke curled into the air. Alexander smiled. "So, how does it feel to be a year wiser?" She laughed softly, wiping away a tear. "I'm not sure about wiser, but definitely more appreciative of small acts of kindness." A silence fell between them. The flickering candlelight cast shifting shadows on Alexander's face, highlighting the concern etched in his features. "You've been carrying so much alone," he said. "You deserve more than that." Her throat tightened. She wanted to say that sometimes she felt like the luckiest woman in the world, just having him in her corner. But fear of heartbreak, of scandal, of complicating an already tangled life held her back. Alexander seemed to sense her hesitation. He took a step closer, gently resting a hand on her arm. "I'd never want to pressure you, Isabella, but if you ever feel ready, I hope you know that my concern for you extends beyond work. You mean more to me than just a partner in design." Her breath caught. She saw the vulnerability in his eyes, a raw honesty she hadn't experienced since her mother's passing. She thought of all the times David had brushed aside her feelings or belittled her dreams. She contrasted that with Alexander's unwavering support, the security that radiated from him. A lump formed in her throat, but she managed to speak through it. "Thank you. That means more than I can say." They lingered there, the faint after scent of birthday candles mingling with the hush of the empty office. Though neither said the words aloud, an unspoken promise took root. They would explore the connection blossoming between them, one careful step at a time. Isabella knew that her pregnancy and David's sporadic threats would complicate matters. But for the first time in months, she felt a stirring of genuine hope. As a frosty winter settled over Boston, Isabella and Alexander quietly grew closer. Their relationship wasn't announced. It simply evolved, gentle touches, warm smiles, and unspoken reassurance. After work, Alexander accompanied her to prenatal appointments, drawing curious glances but offering steady support. David's appearances became rare and brief. Each time he showed up, security would swiftly escort him away. Isabella felt increasingly confident in cutting him out, convinced it was best for her own peace and for the baby. Still, tabloids buzzed with rumors. Photographers snapped pictures of Alexander leaving doctors' offices with a visibly pregnant Isabella. Gossip columns speculated about the baby's father, referencing old photos with David to spark more intrigue. Though the Beaumont Group issued a statement calling Isabella a respected designer, the press refused to drop the story. One evening, perched on the couch in Alexander's penthouse, Isabella watched him skim another salacious headline. She gently urged him to let the rumors fade. His anger gave way to concern for her privacy, and her heart swelled with gratitude. In his devotion, Isabella saw not just a wealthy benefactor, but a deeply caring partner. Sitting side by side, they allowed hope to blossom, a quiet vow that, despite David's lingering threats, they were ready to face every challenge together. At last, the big day arrived. The Beaumont Boutique Hotel's lobby gleamed under dazzling chandeliers, its modern art, plush seating, and custom fixtures all bearing Isabella's creative signature. Dressed in a flowing gown that concealed her growing belly, she stood by Alexander's side. Nervous excitement fluttered inside her. This opening could define her career. Alexander, poised at a podium, thanked his team for bringing the ambitious project to life. When he highlighted Isabella's contributions, applause filled the room. Cameras flashed, and journalists clamored for interviews. Isabella felt both proud and anxious her work was finally in the spotlight. Suddenly, a stir at the entrance caused heads to turn. David pushed past security, eyes wild with anger. "Not here, not now," Isabella thought desperately. "You act like I don't exist," David snapped, pointing at her swollen stomach. "That's my child!" Alexander instantly moved closer, his voice calm but firm. "This isn't the place for your outburst. Please leave," David sneered. "Did you think you could hide me forever? Isabella, you owe me a chance to be a father." Isabella's voice trembled with a mix of fury and heartbreak. "You vanished when I needed you most. You ignored my calls and dismissed me. Don't pretend you suddenly care now." Security swiftly intervened. Cameras flashed, capturing the tense confrontation. David was escorted out, still shouting threats. Heat rushed to Isabella's face as curious onlookers whispered. But Alexander rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his gaze full of concern. "I'm so sorry," she exhaled shakily, blinking back tears. "It's not your fault." Though embarrassed by the scene, Isabella felt relief that the truth was out. No more hiding her pregnancy or David's absence. Surrounded by a crush of reporters, she clutched Alexander's hand. Instead of condemnation, she found respect in the eyes of her peers, admiration for her talent, and sympathy for her ordeal. In that whirlwind of cameras and questions, Alexander's unwavering support shone like a beacon. He guided Isabella away from the crowd, promising to deal with any fallout. As they slipped into a quiet hallway, Isabella realized that despite the chaos, she had found something truly priceless, a partner who loved her enough to stand by her side when it mattered most. The grand opening made headlines, not just for the hotel's splendor, but for the dramatic confrontation that unfolded in its lobby. Articles rehashed Isabella's pregnancy, David's outburst, and Alexander's gallant defense. While some tabloid pieces dripped with sensationalism, more reputable outlets praised Isabella's design genius and Alexander's gentlemanly composure in handling a personal crisis. For days, Isabella steeled herself for the worst calls from her firm, negative reactions from potential clients, or disapproval from the Beaumont Group's board. Instead, she received a flood of supportive emails from colleagues praising her courage. The Beaumont Group stood by Alexander and, by extension, her. And interestingly, potential clients found her talent and resilience appealing, prompting a surge in project inquiries. Legally, David's threat to claim his parental rights lingered, but Alexander helped Isabella connect with a reputable family attorney who assured her that David's history of neglect and erratic behavior would factor into any custody arrangement. The relief she felt was immeasurable. She no longer had to face this alone. One night, as winter winds howled outside, Isabella curled up on Alexander's sofa, nursing a cup of hot chocolate. She wore a soft sweater that stretched over her baby bump. Alexander joined her, tossing a thick blanket over them both. The flicker of the fireplace cast dancing shadows on the walls. "How are you feeling?" he asked, gently resting a hand on her belly. He'd been fascinated by every milestone of her pregnancy, from the first kick to the latest sonogram. "Tired," she admitted, leaning against him, "but I'm relieved everything's out in the open." Hiding was exhausting. Alexander nodded, his gaze traveling over her face. "I'm sorry it happened so publicly, but I'm not sorry it's over." He paused, then added softly, "I want to be in your life, and the baby's life beyond just friendship and support, if you'll let me." Her throat constricted with emotion. She reached up, touching his cheek. "You've already given me so much. I can't imagine doing this without you." A spark of joy lit his eyes. "So, you'll let me stay by your side?" she answered with a gentle kiss, one that conveyed gratitude, affection, and an unspoken promise of the future. The connection between them felt unbreakable, a bond forged by adversity, trust, and genuine love. In that quiet moment by the fire, Isabella allowed herself to believe in happy endings. She still carried scars from David's betrayal, but Alexander's devotion proved that love could heal. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of belonging, a family forming around the baby she carried, one bound not by blood alone, but by unwavering commitment and respect. Winter rolled into spring, and Isabella's due date approached. She divided her time between finalizing smaller design projects, preparing for the baby's arrival, and deepening her connection with Alexander. The media frenzy had quieted, overshadowed by fresher scandals. David sent a few messages, half-hearted attempts to arrange meetings, but Isabella deferred to her attorney, unwilling to engage with him directly. At last, the day came. Isabella woke in the early morning hours with a dull ache in her lower back and a wave of intense cramps. She recognized the signs of labor immediately. Anxiety and excitement flooded her, and she quickly called Alexander, who rushed over in record time. They arrived at the hospital, hearts pounding, as the medical team prepared for the delivery. Marina joined them, offering moral support, while Alexander stayed glued to Isabella's side, holding her hand through every contraction. The hours blurred. Pain crashed over Isabella, but she focused on the rhythmic beep of the monitor and the soothing sound of Alexander's voice, encouraging her to breathe. Finally, as dawn broke, A strong cry filled the delivery room. Isabella's baby boy arrived, pink and healthy. Tears streamed down her cheeks as the nurse placed the tiny bundle in her arms. She marveled at his delicate features, overwhelmed by a surge of protective love. Alexander, standing beside her, gazed at the newborn with a mixture of awe and affection. Isabella hesitated, unsure how he might feel in this moment, but the tenderness in his eyes answered every doubt. He reached out to gently cradle the baby's head, whispering, "He's perfect." In the days that followed, the hospital stay felt surreal. Isabella recovered from the rigors of childbirth, cherishing every minute with her son. She named him Liam Monroe, honoring her mother's maiden name. Though David's name was nowhere on the birth certificate, a pang of sadness surfaced. He might be Liam's biological father, but he had chosen to be absent when it mattered most. Alexander, on the other hand, was present in every sense. He helped change diapers, learned how to swaddle, and softly sang lullabies while rocking Liam to sleep. Watching him embrace fatherhood so naturally sent Isabella's heart soaring. She'd never forget the moment he pressed a kiss to Liam's forehead and murmured, "I promise, I'll always be there for you." On the day of their discharge, Alexander helped Isabella into the passenger seat of his car, with Liam safely secured in the back. As they drove away from the hospital, a gentle rain tapped the windows. Isabella glanced at the rearview mirror, catching sight of her son's peaceful face, then turned to Alexander. A quiet joy enveloped her, a sense of stepping into a life she'd once believed lost. While David's regret was inevitable, and perhaps there would be battles ahead, Isabella had made her choice. Liam's father, in heart and spirit, was the man who stood beside her, and as Alexander's fingers laced with hers, she knew that her future held more love than her past ever dared to promise. A few weeks after Liam's birth, David emerged one last time, brandishing a lawyer and demanding visitation rights. Isabella, weary from sleepless nights and protective of her newborn, held firm. The legal proceedings were brief. The judge, presented with evidence of David's repeated absence, erratic behavior, and lack of financial support, granted him only supervised visits pending a psychological evaluation. Incensed, David stormed out, cursing Isabella for taking everything away from him. Yet, the real heartbreak for David came when he realized that the closeness he once shared with Isabella was irreparably gone. As he stood outside the courthouse, he watched from a distance while Alexander helped Isabella into a car, the infant seat carrying baby Liam. A swirl of regret twisted in David's gut, but there was nothing he could do to rewrite the choices he'd made. That night, Isabella and Alexander celebrated quietly at home. Liam snoozed in his nursery, a soft nightlight casting gentle shapes on the walls. Isabella rested in Alexander's arms, relief coursing through her. The legal drama had been exhausting, but the outcome affirmed her decision to move forward without David's toxic presence. Sensing her thoughts, Alexander murmured, "You're free now, completely." She nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. "I am." She glanced toward the nursery. "We are." They embraced, letting the silence speak volumes. And in that tender moment, Isabella realized that her life had come full circle. Betrayal had shattered her, but from the rubble, she'd built a new world with a partner who respected and loved her, and a child who would never doubt his worth. David's regret was his alone to bear. Isabella's journey stands as a testament to resilience and hope. Betrayed by the man she once trusted, she found the strength not only to rebuild her career, but also to open her heart to a love beyond her wildest dreams. In the face of heartbreak, unexpected pregnancy, and public scrutiny, Isabella refused to be defined by her past. Instead, she became the devoted mother to baby Liam and the cherished partner of the powerful yet compassionate millionaire, Alexander Beaumont. Now, David's regret only echoes in the distance, a reminder that true love and loyalty can never be forced. Thank you for sharing in Isabella's emotional roller coaster of betrayal, redemption, and the triumph of a second chance at happiness. If this story captivated you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more dramatic tales that celebrate strength, perseverance, and the power of unwavering love. Together, let's keep these stories alive.